I think we have been for 4 years not being able to meet in person, right?
Correct. Yes, it's been a while in
Such a long
New
time.
Taipei. Yeah, lots of things have happened, I guess, both in our lives, but also in the world, right, since then.
Yeah, during the COVID.
Absolutely.
The good news is your new album will be released on November 4th.
That's
And
correct.
congrats on your new album coming out. And tell me more details about this album. I know that
Okay.
you have two string quartets in this album, right?
That's correct. So it's
Mm-hmm.
the first two string quartets. Incidentally, I wrote them in Taiwan. When I first got to Taiwan in 1999, I had made the sketches for the first one, just note. And I remember the second movement, I think I had made maybe, I think the first 15 or 20 bars, something like that I'd written out.
Mm-hmm.
But I really didn't have time to write them because when I went to Taiwan in 1999, one of the reasons I went to Taiwan was that I didn't have the money to go to do a master's degree in music.
Mm.
I had been to the Manhattan School of Music, and they were very excited about me, going there to be either a conductor or a composer, to study conducting or composing. But the
Mm-hmm.
fees were just so high. I had no money, and I was by myself. I didn't have parental support. I had to find that money myself. So I went to Taiwan to teach English, to try to find the money to go to music school, to do my master's. So I was teaching English during the days and even in the evenings and on the weekends,
Mm.
and then just sketching and writing music at night. So I didn't really have a lot of time to compose. So
Mm.
in 1999, I started writing that first quartet, and I remember I showed a bit of it to Henry Mazer, who was a well-known conductor in Taiwan at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very encouraging. But then I really started writing it, I think, in 2003, and then I wrote it very quickly. The ideas that I used for that quartet were folk music inspired material, but all original, but it was inspired by the folk rhythms and the melodies of folk music of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's my family background. I was actually born there. And
Mm-hmm.
in 1997, I spent a summer in Jamaica at the University of the West Indies, researching the folk music. And so I guess naturally came out in the music that I wrote then.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2003. The second quartet I wrote in 2008, I guess because of the first work, and the lessons that I learned from the first work. The second work was a bit easier to write. There was no long gestation process. It wasn't a question of writing notes and then many years later writing the work. It all came out in the same year. But it
Mm-hmm.
was a long time before I heard them. The world premiere
Mm-hmm.
of the world premiere of the second quartet happened in 2021, just last year here in Canada. The Despax Quartet in Ottawa played the world premiere, and then the Odin Quartet played the Ontario and Toronto premiere this summer, 2022. The first quartet was played in Taipei in 2009 by two musicians from the Taipei Symphony, and then a concert
Oh.
master of the Nice Philharmonic in France, and a violinist who used to teach at Donghai University from Belarus, right? And they gave the premiere in 2009 in Taipei.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's the background of those two works.
So you use the Jamaican folk music. What's the special in Jamaican folk music?
Well, Jamaican folk music is, you will hear a couple things in Jamaican folk music. First of all, definitely there's the African background of Jamaican folk, because the Jamaican people who predominantly populate Jamaica now are of African ancestry. So a strong element that you're going to hear in Jamaican folk music is rhythmic aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
rhythm is very strong. In modern day popular musics of Jamaica, and I guess even in recent folk music of Jamaica, one rhythm that you're going to hear very strongly is a rhythm which they call the habanera. They name it after Havana in Cuba, but it's a rhythm where you have 3, 3 plus 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the rhythm is
Uh,
bum, 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 this rhythm.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's often heard in Jamaican popular music now, but you hear it in Jamaican folk music as well. And so I
Mm-hmm.
played in both quartets I played with that rhythm, not just 3/3+2, but dividing it, for instance, 1+2, 1+2 +2, or backwards, where I started with the 2 and then 3+3, in different ways like this. So that's one example of a rhythm that I played with. For instance, in the first quartet, where there's a section, right, a rhythm like that, which is not easy to execute or to count. Jamaican folk music, I think, while originally there were African systems of harmony, I think there is now just a trace of those. I mean, because Jamaica having been a British colony, and then having had the influence of the church, there was strong influence of church hymns. So choral music and tonal harmony has influenced the folk music. So the quartets are based in tonal harmony, but at the same time, I've tried to give a sense of the use, or I guess the remnants of sort of a modal harmony that I guess particular to Africa, but only a hint of it. So I guess those are things that you will hear in the music. In the last movement of the first quartet, I based the opening material and some of the material on a scale that I made up, which I'm not going to give you an example of. So I'm going to suggest that everybody buy or listen to the CD and they will hear it. But it's a made up mode, and then the last movement develops from this made up mode.
I'm curious to know, was this on commission from the beginning? What I mean is, do composers always write on commissions?
The pieces that I'm writing now here in Canada, I'm writing on commission. However, the first quartet was the second large piece that I wrote in Taiwan. The first piece that I wrote in Taiwan was a 4-movement symphony for large orchestra. And then the first quartet, and then the second quartet. Well, there were other pieces in between, but then the second quartet. And those pieces were not on commission. I mean, everything that I wrote for the first 10 years in Taiwan, I wrote only because I needed to write. Yeah, correct. Completely independently. But now that I'm back in Canada, now I have received commissions, and I am receiving commissions to write music. So, for instance, right now I'm writing a woodwind quintet, which is going to be premiered in February 2023 by the Winds of the Scarborough Philharmonic, and by the Ensemble Olbiora in Montreal, and by 3 other orchestras, one in Jamaica and the others in Canada. I'm writing a cello concerto for a Canadian cellist, which is going to be premiered by one of Canada's top orchestras, the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so, thank you. So, yeah, so I'm working on several commissions right now.
Okay, so would you like to share some music with us?
Sure, I can share. I can share. I think maybe the last movement of the first quartet. I don't know.
Okay.
Yes. Let me. Let me
try to do this.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay. So the last movement of the second quartet is sort of variation movement, but it's not strict variation. I mean, the variation form is very interesting to me. And what I called it is games of varied paraphrases. So it uses a very strong rhythmic idea, and it uses da-da-da-bum-bum, and then the different instruments do different games or variations based on that.
That's very nice.
Thank you very much. If people are interested, I mean, they can. That was played by Toronto's Odin Quartet, which is one of the more active and prominent quartets here in Toronto, Canada. And they did a wonderful job of it. So, yeah.
That's nice.
People will listen to that. Learn from it, but don't let it make you lose sight of who you are. And you have to be true to yourself. And
for me, I don't think being an individual, being original is about looking for originality. And I think that's true in music too.
Again, going back to finding your own voice.
Yeah, absolutely.